They murdered Luciano's son in cold blood, but the cover-up goes all the way to the top. But the shocking truth behind the life-taking will leave you speechless. Why did three teens murder Luciano's son over a simple glance? The real story exposes Jamaica's darkest secret. Stick around. The final twist reveals who ordered the hit and why. You won't believe what really happened that night. Menelik McClement, the beloved son of Jephthah McClement, known to the world as Luciano, the messenger, stepped into the buzzing streets of Kingston on a fateful February afternoon, carrying with him no premonition of the darkness lurking ahead. The heart of Jamaica, vibrant and alive, bore silent witness as fate unfurled a tragedy so profound it would scar the soul of reggae music forever. The day was February 27th, a day like any other, but by its end, Menelik lay fatally wounded, his life cruelly severed over a gaze perceived the wrong way. Wounded multiple times, he fought a battle he could not win, slipping away from life's fragile tether just a day later, leaving a silence in his father's life that no melody could fill. Luciano, the stalwart voice of righteousness and peace, found himself adrift in a storm of grief so suffocating it threatened to drown the very foundations of his faith. Known for his unwavering belief in Rastafari and his ceaseless calls for peace, he now grappled with the most human of emotions, vengeance. In the private corners of his mind, darkness whispered seductive promises of retribution. He admitted, with the aching honesty of a man torn, that there were moments when the urge to take up arms clawed at his soul. Yet every time the shadows beckoned, he returned to the music that had always been his compass. Songs like Lord Give Me Strength became not just melodies but lifelines, hauling him back from the abyss. The consequences of the passing away of Luciano's son rippled outward like cracks in glass. The United Kingdom tour that Luciano had meticulously prepared for was abandoned, a testament to the chasm Menelik's death had carved into his existence. As Luciano retreated into his sorrow, the machinery of justice creaked slowly into motion. Three teenagers, barely adults at 18, were charged with the life-taking that had shattered a family and reverberated through the entire reggae community. Jerome Coombs, Comedy Shaw, and Nashlyn Anderson faced the cold scrutiny of the corporate area resident magistrate's court, but their demeanor suggested a chilling detachment. As resident magistrate Simone Wolf-Reese delivered the grim news that they would remain behind bars pending the completion of the case file, they shared muted jokes, seemingly impervious to the gravity of the moment. Luciano, clad in a sober beige suit that could not camouflage the turmoil within, could not contain his anguish. His exit from the courtroom was a storm of restrained rage and profound sorrow. The physical manifestation, a heart breaking in real time. There were others entangled in this web of tragedy. The driver of the getaway car, a man whose role remained clouded in ambiguity, was under police deliberation for charges as both an accomplice and an eyewitness. Attorney-at-law Tom Tavares Vinson, representing Luciano's family, revealed that another witness could potentially provide the testimony that would tip the scales of justice against the driver, whose defense was a desperate claim that he had been coerced to assist the assailants. The police reports painted a grim tableau. Menelik, assaulted and beaten by all three youths at Parkington Plaza in St. Andrew, endured the fatal thrust of Nashlyn Anderson's sharp object, vicious wounds to his back and chest that extinguished his young life. Anderson, Shaw, and Coombs, hailing from Ambrook Lane and Bob Marley Boulevard respectively, were apprehended, charged, and thrust into the labyrinthine world of criminal justice. A year would crawl by before Nashlyn Anderson entered a guilty plea, not to life-taking, but to manslaughter. The remaining two, K. Marie Shaw and Jerome Coombs, defiantly proclaimed their innocence, setting the stage for a trial that promised to reopen the wounds of that terrible day. Luciano, his heart a battlefield between despair and duty, took to social media, pleading for public assistance in capturing the guilty and imploring Kingston's youth to renounce the epidemic of senseless violence. He named and shamed the notorious neighborhood steeped in blood, including Halfway Tree Road, the very ground where his son's life was claimed. His voice, always a clarion call for consciousness, rang louder, more desperate, more necessary. In a landscape where reggae music has too often been overshadowed by the glorification of violence and vice, Luciano stood, or perhaps more accurately, stood broken but unbowed, as an emblem of resistance. His music, richly textured with calls for peace and spiritual awakening, carved a path divergent from that of other figures like Vybz Kartel, whose Conviction for Life taking in 2014 cast a long shadow over the dancehall scene before being overturned a decade later. Luciano's ascendancy was not accidental. Following the tragic death of Garnett Silk in 1994, reggae's faithful needed a new shepherd, and they found one in the quiet yet commanding figure of Luciano. The release of Where There Is Life under Chris Blackwell's Island Jamaica label in 1995 was a watershed moment. His music, titled It's Me Again, Jah, soared to the summit of Jamaican charts, a soulful anthem that showcased his unique ability to blend urgency with serenity. Tracks like Who Could It Be and the album's title song cemented his position as the new face of conscious reggae. The Messenger's path wound its way deeper into reggae's heart with his follow-up album Messenger in 1996, a compilation of his greatest singles that resonated with a populace hungry for messages of hope. His work with the Exterminator label, under the keen eye of producer Philip Fadis Burrell, yielded a bounty of music that would become the soundtrack of a generation. Collaborations with stalwarts like Sizzla, Mikey General, the Firehouse Crew, Capleton, and Coco T painted a vibrant portrait of a scene reinvigorated by purpose. Albums like Sweep Over My Soul encapsulated a career reaching its zenith, even as a professional relationship with Burrell drew to a close. The years that followed showcased a relentless drive to evolve. By 2001, Luciano had unleashed a storm of creativity, releasing 2 live albums and 2 compilation albums, further solidifying his partnership with fellow roots reggae warriors like Anthony B. and Sizzla. His studio albums Great Controversy and A New Day burst onto the scene, the latter earning him a Grammy nomination in 2002, a rare accolade for reggae musicians and a testament to his global appeal. With the help of saxophonist Dean Fraser, whose artistry had become inseparable from Luciano's sound, and legendary rhythm duo Sly and Robbie, Luciano crafted anthems that spoke not just to Jamaicans but to a world in desperate need of spiritual sustenance. Dean Fraser's influence stretched far beyond the studio walls, accompanying Luciano on tours and coaxing new levels of artistry from the singer. Albums like Jah Is My Navigator in 2008 and United States of Africa in 2010 revealed a man unafraid to expand his message beyond the spiritual to the political, addressing the turbulent currents shaping modern life. Luciano's contributions did not go unnoticed. On October 15, 2007, the government of Jamaica awarded him the Order Distinction in the rank of officer for his services to music, a fitting tribute to a life spent in the service of song and soul. The Grammy nomination for Zion Awake at the 58th Annual Grammy Awards further underscored his enduring relevance in a genre too often dismissed by the mainstream. Rolling Stone in 2023 placed him 143rd on their list of the greatest singers of all time, a nod not just to his technical prowess, but to the authenticity and gravitas he brings to every note he sings. In January 2025, at Rebel Salute in St. Ann, Jamaica, Luciano stood once again before the faithful, his voice rising like a benediction over the gathered masses. It was a performance soaked in the bittersweet knowledge of all he had lost, but also radiant with the undying flame of resilience. Menelik's death remains a wound that no passage of time can mend. It is a scar that Luciano carries with him onto every stage, into every recording booth, into every silent moment where memory overpowers melody. And yet, even in the depths of his sorrow, he finds the strength to sing, not just for his son, not just for himself, but for all those who yearn for a world where no parent must bury their child because of a glance, a misperceived slight, a moment of madness. Through the darkest storm, Luciano remains a messenger, his voice a lighthouse in the gathering gloom, calling all who can hear to turn away from vengeance, to lay down arms, and to find strength in something greater than rage. His is a message written not just in songs or awards, but in the very marrow of a life lived and a loss endured, with a grace that defies the darkness. What would you have done if you were in Luciano's shoes? Does his choice to sing through sorrow make him even greater than before? How do we hold on to faith when everything precious is ripped away? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe real strength deserves real recognition, subscribe and stay with us as we uncover more stories that move the soul.